My presentation is, I called it iOS Tricks with OS2. You know, after interacting with the attendees for a while this weekend, I realized that a lot of people have not adopted a smartphone, but eventually you probably will. And when you do, you know, we're all well, many of us are anyway, are OS2 users. And so what are you going to do with these two objects? They both are computers. They're both going to want you to interact with them in some ways, and it's nice to get them to play together. And so that's the broad stroke of my presentation. You know, how can you work with your smartphone? I used the Apple products. They believe that I'm not digging deep into the functionality of the smartphone. This will all work on Android or Windows or whatever kind of phone you may have, as long as it's fairly modern. But you're going to have to dig in and say, how can you share information and tasks between the two? You know, if at least I have been using OS2 heavily and rely on it quite a bit for not just my work, but organizing my whole life. So, yeah, iOS, I keep referring to that as the operating system for the iPhone and iPad. Yeah, and it connects online to iCloud. I don't know what they used to call iCloud, but so your phones will back up to the iCloud and restore to the iCloud, and a lot of your data is just sort of shared, and that is how, if you have an iPad and an iPhone, that they are somehow synchronized. OS2, I'm going to use that as shorthand, but I do mean OS2 Ecom Station or Blue Lion. So one of the things that I do, I'm leaving most of my information on OS2, and if I want to access my computer at home, I have to leave it on the internet. And how do you do that? Well, 3 steps. So I'm saying open the firewall, and I'm realizing that that is again jargon, but you are connected at home to the internet somehow, and there'll be some box that has a connection to the internet and some way for your computer to talk to it, and it routes information back and forth, and it has a firewall in it to stop intrusion into your computer. And by default, these things are set up to block everything. You have to subvert this and allow the internet to come into your machine. As OS2 users, by default, your machine's pretty safe in that configuration. So, and then the second thing is, how are you going to find your machine? It's attached to your home computer connection. Your whoever provides your internet is not interested in you finding that place. So you're going to have to use some method so that your phone can find your computer. That involves the domain naming service. So I'll explain how to do that. And then when you do run something on your computer to make it available to the iPhone, it will be password protected by default. It's very important to use strong passwords. If you use a password from the dictionary and you put your machine on the internet, they will access your machine. It's just a question of how long. So I decided to give the network diagram, and I added a box to it. I mean, you have the internet, you have your whatever cable modem or router or firewall. That's some box that your ISP probably provided you, your computer, and then things. We talk about the Internet of Things. They're also playing in this same game. The maker of the thing is connecting your thing to the internet, and that's how your phone can control your thermostat or your refrigerator or whatever. And of course, we've seen, now that those things, people take them over, and so you have the same problem with your computer, but your things have the same problem. So this is going to be something that will, right now it's not in everyday jargon, but it's going to be. The Internet of Things is going to give us a new thing to talk about. So opening the firewall, and I'll show how my firewall allows you to do this, but in general you're just going to point your web browser at your firewall, there'll be a setup program, and you have to do one of two things. You can make your OS2 computer the DMZ, which stands for Demilitarized Zone, but it basically means your computer is now completely attached to the internet. Every message that comes to your router will be routed to your OS2 computer. And the other way is better, especially if you've had some product like Enjoy, to just say, no, only the packets that I really want are going to the OS2 computer. Much harder to set up, than just saying DMZ, yes, but it's more secure. And also you can do a lot of things, like if you have Enjoy, you can do a lot of things to make yourself more secure. But I'm not going to get into the details of that. Okay, on my front, this is too small to see. I've violated Joe's rule right here. This is much too small to see, but it is my firewall settings. I did the latter route of each service is being allowed and routed to my OS2 computer, and any other service that I don't use is just being blocked as it would be by default. You may not be able to read the individual lines, but you can see how many there are. That's the number of rules. Yeah?
Yeah, when you say service, do you mean port? Is it
yes.
based on the port number, or is it something else?
It's based on the port number. With Enjoy, you could base it on more than just the port number. It could look into the packet and say port numbers that are really addressed to that port, or there's all kinds of tricks you could do. With a cheap commercial firewall such as I have, it's just the port number. And so if you are going to go that route, you may want to read up on how you configure firewalls by port number. That's beyond the scope of the discussion. It's enough to know that that's a job you'll do. And DMZ actually is usually set up from a screen like that, but there's usually, even within this one, there's an advanced and a basic. With the basic, you can set up the DMZ, and it's just you find it in your firewall software, you say yes, save, and it might reboot the router, I don't know. But, okay. Configuring the DNS. How are you going to find this computer? Now that you've made it available on the internet, how is your phone going to find it? One way is to just write down your external IP address, the address of your firewall. That's the one that's going to, well, it's actually your computer, no, you have to find that IP address in your firewall, in your router screens. And then you would tell your iPhone by IP address. This is crude, it's difficult, but it would work. The second way would be most firewalls. You can register it with dns.org or some other DNS hosting service. And most routers, that's just built in. You give your username and password, and now you have a name, probably like yourname.dns.org or whatever you choose, that you can now type into your phone. As your ISP might change your IP address, DNS.org will follow those changes, and you'll always refer to your computer by its name on DNS.org. That's free for the use case I'm giving you of one computer attached to the internet. It is a $40 a year fee to connect up to 1,000 computers to the internet.
How did you manage to get your Dyn account grandfathered? My free one went away.
I've been doing this a long time. I don't know. But at some point I said, I want the extra features. So I don't know. Did you go away in the last year or two?
About 2 years ago.
Okay. I only went to Pro about that time.
There are free services, but Dyn just seems to do a better job.
They do a great job.
Yeah, just like DuckDNS and stuff like that.
Yeah, noip.org. Yeah, there's a lot of providers, but your job is to find the provider of your choice and get a membership, and and it's usually free.
You have a fixed IP address.
Okay, you can have a fixed IP address and you can write it down, or you can have a fixed IP address and configure your computer with an upstream DNS. If you have the smarts to get a static IP address, your ISP probably also gives you access to their domain name server, at least for your static IP address, and you can name it. You'll pay someone for that naming, and that would make you an official address, not through some temporary dynDNS.org. Some services will not really let you talk. You know, some email servers and so on will not let you send from a dynDNS.org. They'll say, oh, this came from a user. Yeah, yeah. It says, I don't like that kind of address, and that's a little bit problematic. Okay. Once you're connected to the internet and you've got your phones, how do you share files? Well, you have to have something running on your OS2 machine to share files. Good choices are FTP. SAMBA's not so good for over the air. So FTP is what I've been using to get files to and from my machine. SAMBA is still useful in the case where you're at home with your phone and tablet, which is probably most of the time, and it gives you fast and nice access. So I'll also talk a little bit about the SAMBA server, something that's useful at home. And the clients, there are no built-in clients for FTP or SAMBA in the iPhone. I don't know if Android has them, but they're certainly free and easy to install from the store. That's true, I think, of most smartphones. They don't come loaded with a lot of products. You add the ones you want from the store. Okay, for the server, I use FTP Server by Peter Moylan. I know there's a built-in FTP server for the OS2, but it doesn't support all FTP modes. It supports the there's active and passive. Active is the one it supports. That is more likely to run into trouble as you wander around to cafes and stuff. They are likely to have blocked active. Passive is easier to, travel with. So FTP Server supports passive FTP, and so it's a little bit more robust as you travel around. It's not perfect. You'll go someplace, I'm at a public library or something, and they've blocked even passive FTP. Well, you're kind of stuck. I'm lucky enough to have a public library that really lets you do anything you want. And I wonder a lot. I more than wonder about, is that really letting people do crazy things? Because I read an article in the New Yorker that, yes, that our public library was used to launch several nasty attacks. So, I log transactions on the FTP server, so it's sitting there noticing who has access. And periodically I'll go to that log and say, is someone hammering on my FTP server? Because if they are, there's probably something I can do about that. But in any of these services, it's good to have a log and look, is somebody systematically attacking my computer? You've put it on the internet, you just want to have a look. Mostly I found, no, they don't. But
well, part of it that helps is that Peter basically has his own intrusion detector built in. So if somebody tries to do a dictionary attack on you, he'll lock them out. So he's sort of got a firewall that's just for that sort of stuff.
yeah.
And that's handy. The only bad thing, if you're worried about sniffing, passwords aren't encrypted.
Yeah, and I'm using them from outside,
Right.
So it is a poor choice in a way, and some future version of this presentation will cover SFTP.
Well, actually, I want to talk to Peter about that as soon as I get some time, because since he can control the port, we can have S-tunnel on a couple of ports. It's like 2 or 3 ports that you'll do FTP on.
Yes. So
And
we
then you
have
should
all the
have-
pieces. They just needed to be assembled
Yeah.
in an easy-to-use manner. And I wanted to, if I'm going to recommend that you guys do this, I want it to be easy to set up. I don't want this to be a life's work to get this working. It's nice to have once it's working, but it would be nice for it to be more secure as well. All the tools I'm talking about for the iPhone, they all support SFTP. They're actually kind of surprised that I'm using FTP anymore, but they do support that too. So.
And we do have SFTP clients, we just don't have the server aspect.
Right, but I'm not talking about taking your OS2 machine out and doing this, although that has that side benefit that, yes, I can
Well,
also
if
take
we're
my
talking
OS2
about
laptop.
yeah,
And
if we're talking about bringing the files off your OS2 machine, we do care about the server.
yeah. So I only use strong passwords, and that's just make sure it's not in a dictionary. the strongest thing is to use a phrase. I saw an article comparing, use punctuation and numbers and so on versus just an easy to remember phrase. Phrases are longer, but as far as a dictionary attack, they're almost impossible for a dictionary attack to include phrases. I'm sure somebody will make a dictionary of phrases someday, but so far that has not happened. FTP Client, I'm using FTP Client Pro on FTP Server. I wanted to put this in here so that when you download the presentation later, you can say, what does he use? Oh, okay. And like I say, I'm using FTP when I'm away from my home Wi-Fi. Inside my home Wi-Fi range, I'm using SAMBA. Okay, and there's a picture of FTP Client Pro, just showing my files. No, there's just nothing much to it. You're not going to get a great user interface on a phone, but. All right, SAMBA. This is the SAMBA server as opposed to the client. This doesn't come with, pre-configured on an eCom station. It doesn't. I don't know how it's going to be on Blue Lion, but I suspect it won't. This is good file sharing, and over time, Bitwise has improved the installation of SAMBA server quite a bit. So I used to say, in fact, I did last year, I believe, an entire presentation on how to install SAMBA server. I'm not sure I would do a whole presentation on SAMBA server now. If you just run the installation, it will work. It will share everything on your machine, and I just encourage you again to use strong passwords during the installation process. When it says pick your root password, have thought ahead of time at a really difficult to guess home root password. Yeah.
No, that's the password.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah.
I checked the password of the TV here last night. Sure enough, it's 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. Hi, that's my Oh. I use the file browser app on iOS for access to the SAMBA server. It's a beauty. And okay, SAMBA Client. Okay, I use the file browser on iOS. It already opens all these supported file types. It's nice, it's sometimes difficult to get files that everybody else can open on my OS2 machine. So, sometimes I'll have a little difficulty, something's not quite right. Just grab the tablet and open it in the file browser. It's got my whole OS2 machine right in front of me, and it's a different view on my OS2 machine. Instead of the computer monitor, keyboard, mouse, I'm now on the tablet, but it's still the same experience. I'm still basically running OS2. I just got a different way of displaying it. Okay, the iPhone, iPad does not support all file types, but there's always an app, it seems, to support a file type. And within iOS, there's a way, and I guess it's sort of copied from the Macintosh, to say, okay, this is an unsupported file type. What application do you want to open it? And so you have to install yet another app from the App Store. It registers itself with the iPhone and puts itself up in a menu of what app do you want to open this file. Unfortunately, at this point, it seems to ask every time, so you can't say, this is my app to open JPEGs or something. Well, JPEGs support it anyway, but Flash files, which there's sort of third-party Flash on iPhone, although Apple doesn't like it. Some third-party developers said, I like it. So, okay. And access to photos. Many people use their phone as a camera. If you've set up your phone to share to iCloud, then your photo roll from all your devices is merged, and File Browser has access to that. So I really would rather have my photos on my computer. It's made it a lot easier to just say, whatever device I'm on, I'm transferring to the computer and erasing them off of iCloud. iCloud is just sort of my photo album that I like to go, oh, hey, look at my picture of my granddaughter. So I don't want to store every photo I ever took on the iCloud. for various reasons. Okay, contacts. You know, I've always kept a nice list of email contacts on my OS2 machine, and you know, it's been useful over time. You know, I'm a business as a consultant. I got to keep a lot of people at my fingertips. You know, I got 1,000 people in my address book. I thought, that's nice. How am I going to get that to the iPhone? You know, I got this thing. I got nobody's phone number, email address, anything. How does that work? So I played around with the contacts on iCloud for a while. That iCloud holds the contacts for every device. So your contacts are shared nicely between iPad, iPhone, all your Apple devices through iCloud. But so I went on the web browser, which used to work and periodically works again every time we have a new Firefox version released from Bitwise. iCloud works again. Otherwise, I borrow someone's computer. And, you know, but my contacts are all there. Select them all. Export. Saves them as a vCard stack. What is vCard? vCard is a sort of open format for contacts. So it has the name, email address, various phone numbers that people have. You know, you can keep quite a stack of information on somebody. It's mostly text, but there's some extensions that allow you to have pictures of people or a recording of what their voice is like or whatever. But just saying to the plain text part of it, I save that as a file on OS2, and that's my entire address book. And it's just repetition of the vCard format over and over and over again. You know, if I have 1,000 contacts, there's 1,000 copies of vCard in one contiguous text file. That text file can be directly imported into Thunderbird's address book. Okay, there's a little settings on the left. Select all, export. It's as simple as that. Oh, okay, sorry. I thought I had Thunderbird slide next. I'm out of order. But yeah, I can go straight into Thunderbird with that. It makes a new address book, but Thunderbird works well across multiple address books. And I just export periodically, so I keep them in sync that way. And you know, I may delete the old one. I don't have routing back from Thunderbird to iCloud. I wish this was all kept in sync, but you know, at least I can export and use it that way. Okay, desktop sharing. I do sometimes use the VNC product, which we've seen earlier in Warpstock. That means running VNC Server on OS2. That's one that people love to hack into. So again, strong password. Yeah, or use your, well, even if it's a secure one.
I can show you, it's sitting right back there. They aren't hacking it.
Oh, okay.
Got all that tunnel verification. Unless they steal my private certificates, they're not getting in.
Oh yeah, no, but they knock. Or in my log they knock. Maybe it's just me.
They may have found you. I don't see anybody trying to get in there.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, of course, I don't leave it up all the time, you know, and so that makes a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because they were so assiduously knocking on my server, I didn't want them to get lucky, so I don't run it all the
Personally,
time
I
either.
wouldn't use VNC except over S-tunnel.
Yeah, that's probably a wise move. I have a document from you on setting it up that I have not yet gotten around to doing.
I almost did a presentation on it here, but the schedule filled up.
The VNC client on iPhone supports the secured access, and again, they're kind of like warn you, there's no security on this. So you know the right way is to secure it. So the VNC clients on iOS, I use real VNC, but there are others. Keyboard on the Mac, on the iPhone and iPad differs from the OS2 keyboard in certain inconvenient ways. So there is a little problem with using every program on OS2, but the basic ones seem to work okay. And then firewall issues. If you are programming your firewall port by port, VNC is a little trickier than some of them to set up. But you know, you can read how to do it on the internet. It's not that hard. It just takes a little longer. Calendar. I never used a calendar for a long time, and suffered a lot of ridicule for it. But when I started getting Apple products, I said, okay, I'll use the calendar. I hate this. There's no good way to print the calendar on either on the iPhone or in OS2 from the browser. So that's where I do borrow, maybe once or twice a month, borrow somebody's computer and print from a platform that does support. So you really need a native Apple calendar to print, so that stinks. And not doing it from the iPhone, I should find out why that is. But the calendar is shared to the Thunderbird plugin Lightning, and you basically just publish this calendar, and this is too small to see, but in the upper left corner you can see little Wi-Fi signals. That means I've published those calendars, and that means that I can now see them from Thunderbird. And it's still password protected, and okay. It is useful. It's synced. If you want to share with your relatives, you can have their calendars in there too, and and it publish the calendar in iCloud and then open it on Thunderbird. Works fairly well. Changes in Thunderbird do not reflect on iCloud. I don't know if that's a problem with our what is the Thunderbird calendar plugin called?
Lightning.
Lightning. Okay, so that may be a bug in Lightning. It may be a bug in iCloud. I didn't pursue it so far. Having it read only on Thunderbird was not a big issue for me. It makes it just one more way to see it. I started to think about, well, what about multimedia files? Is it that hard to play multimedia files on OS2? Sometimes it doesn't work. So that does make it easier to have your entire music and video library on OS2 and have something that can play it more conveniently. It's certainly more convenient to plug your iPhone into a big monitor than it is to plug your OS2 into a big monitor. But I use the VNC.
No, you use
LC. Sorry about that.
VLC.
Sorry about that.
V-
Fix that one.
Ooh.
I'll make a note to fix that before VLC on iOS and OS2. And our port is pretty nice. It actually plays some files that won't play on iPhone. So web browsing. This has been frustrating. I had this exciting idea of now that they synchronize between iPhone and OS2, that this was going to be an exciting part of the presentation, that all my tabs on OS2 are now simultaneously opened and my bookmarks are shared all in real time between OS2, iPad, and iPhone. No. The OS2 part works great. It crashes on iPad and iPhone. Now, this is not the story we've been hearing most of the time when we have ports.
Genius.
What?
Go talk to one of the geniuses at the Mac store.
Okay. Fair enough. I did share everything, and I said, I'll bet I could turn these off one at a time and find out what exactly is crashing. But, when I went to the internet to look it up, I saw a lot of references to this, and none of them were OS2 users. So I'm not alone in this, but okay, fair enough. I found no good way to have Safari import my bookmarks, the built-in browser on iPad and iPhone. Basic thing I did was just put my bookmarks file someplace convenient, security by obscurity, on my web server, and I bookmarked that one thing on Safari, and now I got my bookmarks. But that's a hack. I don't like that much. I'd really rather have real synchronization. So I'm waiting, and I will ask somebody who knows. Maybe I'll have an update for this. This is the OS2 part of Firefox Sync, and it works beautifully once you've logged on to Firefox's website. Of course, your bookmarks are now on the Firefox website. That may be okay or not. How sensitive are you to privacy? And maybe they'll be fine. Most things that are on a third party's website eventually get hacked. Certainly every bank, every insurance, and every medical provider I've used has got my information in everybody's hands who I didn't want it. I don't know what to say about that. It's beyond the scope of this presentation. Okay, email. I had been, just a dedicated POP user, weasel, and I had a lot of things set up nicely, and I realized that was going to be kind of problematic, as I wanted to have synchronized sharing of my email between all my devices. POP is a very difficult way to get that. Having lots of different clients when you are testing PM mail or something like that is wonderful. So POP's a good answer for that, plus PML only supports POP. But for synchronized sharing, it's terrible. And you may have tried it. You're gonna make a mistake eventually. Email clients on OS2, Thunderbird's the monkey. IMAP is a nice thing. It's efficient. You may spend some time getting your email once and getting it arranged, but after that it only gets differences, and that's pretty nice. Apple Mail is only works at the iCloud, so I don't use it that much. Wait, is that right? No, I do use it. No, you can point Apple email at anything. I'm sorry, I don't know what I was trying to pick up there. So Apple email will work with POP or IMAP. IMAP server, I use an ISP for it. I'll get into later why I made that choice. IMAP on OS2, still kind of interesting. Okay, there's two types of email services, POP and IMAP. POP, you pretty much download your email as you go, and that's why, if you have two clients, one downloaded, now they're not there on the server anymore. You can say, everybody leaves it on the server except for this one, but that still doesn't work for various reasons. IMAP stores all the messages on the server. The problem there is if you're like me and keep your email messages, you exhaust the available space on the server. So keeping email clients is a lot easier if you keep your email on the server, though, because there really is only one copy, and everybody's got a picture of it. So that security is vital on IMAP server. Sadly, I learned this the hard way. So a lot of you have been getting spam from me. Well, sorry, and it's not in my hands. I mean, it's strong now. It's not going to happen again. But they already have my information, and they scanned everything.
But you're not alone. It's not just you.
I know it's not just me, but I'm supposed to know better.
This is true.
Yeah. I don't know what I was thinking, to use a weak password on that. Jeffrey.
So I'm thinking about this because I only use the POP mail because I'm a big fan of PM mail.
Yeah.
And I've got a workaround, I think. I also want to have my email accessible from my production machine, but I want to be able to access it. So what I'm thinking I'm going to set up, the system I do now, I just keep all the email. I download everything in PM mail. I like it because every message is a text file.
Yeah.
You can read it with anything. It's very useful that way.
Yes.
I don't go the Thunderbird or anything like that. But the question is, how do I have it accessible in other ways? So the thing I'm thinking of setting up, I'd like your comment on this, is I will set up a rsync job, and it will just keep updating on at another location. So I have another computer, and I also have a place, I rent some space on a server down here in Florida somewhere, I don't know where they are, and for $3 a month. And I just have successive rsync jobs that run, and within a few hours, within a day, everything is copied in at least 3 places. On the machine I carry around with me,
Yeah.
and in 2 other locations, probably a server at the house in Boston, and at this commercial place down there. So there's a little lag, but everything is mirrored perfectly, and it's not the problem that you've got, that it's all in one location. If that goes down, and it's possible, you lose everything. That's why I never have trusted having my email in anybody else's custody. It's always in my custody.
Well, with IMAP, every client has at least every Thunderbird client has a copy of everything.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to access individually,
Well-
message by message?
I can export message by message. That's
But you gotta open the client to do that, whereas I can look at messages, I get strange messages, I have
Well-
to pick them apart. I can actually open it up with list or something
Yeah.
like that, or a text editor, and I can look at the message, I have to do that sometimes.
Okay, so I have to do one more step, I have to export. Then I can do that.
Yeah.
It may not be convenient, but I get a lot of extra convenience by having
Yeah.
it set up that way. For PM mail though, at the IMAP server, I forward a copy to my private Weasel server,
Mhm.
and then that goes into
Yeah.
PM mail. So PM mail actually stays synchronized as well.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna suggest, because you gotta differentiate between archiving and access.
Yeah,
But,
for archiving, I use PM mail.
yeah,
It's a nice way, and like he says, every message is in its own file. It's a little more robust than the big files that Thunderbird uses, or the even worse big files that Outlook uses. So, you know, that's, so, yeah, and Weasel as an email server is very easy to set up. So, security is vital on the IMAP server. I guess I already apologize for spamming everybody. So choose a password that is difficult to guess. I can't emphasize that enough. Okay, hop-only email clients such as PM Mail. I had talked earlier about the address book, and I am working on the problem of taking that vCard stack into PM Mail. I thought, oh great, I have converted my vCard stack into the CSV file that PMail expects, and I'm getting unexpected results. Well, why? What kind of character set is in the Apple? What kind of character set's in PM? Oh. So I know what the problem is. I don't have a solution yet, but that's something that I need to talk with the PM Mail developers about how I'm going to solve that. But I would like to have direct import of that vCard stack into PM Mail eventually. That would make it pretty life good for PM Mail users who want to share it with their
that would be
phones.
nice if you dump it in the clipboard to space and recognize it as vCard.
Ah, okay.
Because it's real recognition, it knows it's a vCard if it looks. It knows to look at the clipboard content.
Yeah, I've looked at the clipboard API, you're right. Huh, okay. Interesting. And then, you know, IMAP such as Thunderbird and SeaMonkey work, you know, seamlessly once you have read the instructions of how to connect it to the Apple email, or to your ISP's email even. It's always a little hard to set up an email client, but. Okay, IMAP servers, Apple provides iCloud. That's it, the iCloud server does not, well, it didn't play the way I wanted to, so I started with that and abandoned it pretty quickly. Many other ISPs support IMAP. My ISP is being difficult, so I'm shopping around for another solution, but basically, yeah, they work great, and they don't like the archivers that makes their life difficult. So, you know, if you delete all your email, they love you, but you know, if you keep a year or two, then they start IPing you less.
You have used 200 gigabytes of your 100 gigabyte.
Yeah. Well, also, I think every operation on their server may not scale well as the number of messages you store on it increase, and that's a burden on every user that they've got. You know, they've got to support a lot of users.
Well, email is even in a given account, you know, email is essentially linear.
Yeah. Yeah. So that it's a burden. You know, you do the math. It's not nice. So, and you have to trust your ISP. That's why I'm with my ISP right now. He reviewed the laws about what he has to disclose to Homeland Security, and he said, if I ever just go out of business, because that's the loophole, an ISP has to disclose that or you're going to jail. But if you went out of business, then the law doesn't actually apply to you.
One person didn't.
What?
He shut down.
Yeah, if he shuts down, we know why. Okay. IMAP servers on OS2. I mean, that would be one thing, and then I don't only have to trust myself. Communicate, commercial server for OS2 supports IMAP. It's, I know a couple people using it. Seems to work nicely, but expensive for even a small number of seats. And
There is a community edition though that's free still.
Yeah, and puts messages on your.
Yeah, it puts
Yeah.
plasters a banner on every message. It
Yeah,
says,
I wasn't so
this was set
excited
with
about.
the community edition of.
Yeah, so I wasn't so excited about that. Weasel does support IMAP. It doesn't work very well. It does
It
not
really
work.
doesn't scale.
It doesn't work with the
Combination
iPhone at
of
all.
the language and the internal architecture, it's just unfortunate.
Yeah, and it's open source. Could fix
Yeah.
it, but
Who's gonna do that?
yeah, and it's in Modula too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, maybe Robert will do something, we'll see.
maybe, but
Yeah, Robert, I think it's Robert Wolf came along and he's all excited.
That's right.
about
Yeah.
it.
that's
Yeah.
right. Okay,
Well, we'll see.
and he's building it.
He's
Supposedly
doing
so.
it, or, you know.
Yeah. So
Neil, there is a comment from Alex Taylor. He says he wrote and Rex a script that copies email from PM mail to an IMAP server.
okay.
So every email he downloads from PM mail, it gets copied to an IMAP account I choose.
Okay.
So
I will
it-
contact
yeah,
him
well.
for a little help. That's a good thing. And Alex was the guy I was going to talk to about Code Page anyway. So, Courier, and I don't know what the story is with this. I've been looking at the various pieces that are on RPM right now. Courier is not by itself enough of an IMAP solution, but the other pieces seem to be there. The names are somewhat suggestive, and there's no documentation. I looked up documentation for setting this up, and they said, well, you need these other pieces. And I go, they're not on OS2. But then I look, well, this suggests that it's kind of similar. So Courier, XMPAT, you're going to need a lot of parts. They're not documented. I may not be the best pioneer for this project at getting an IMAP server to run. More and more of the pieces are here. I'm sorry that...
I was hoping you'd volunteer to be the pioneer.
Somebody needs to have a service, and so many of the parts are ported now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a porter, but I am a configurer, and so that might be the missing piece. You know, the guy to write the instructions, and to have tried it once, and to have found the obvious bugs or missing ports. So that's in the back of my mind.
Well,
But-
the obvious solution is mention the app name for fall and see what happens in 3 weeks.
Well, if you look on RPM, I mean, it seems like most of the pieces are there, but the instructions for how they go together, and why are they there? Who ported this and didn't use it? Or did they use it?
Well, they probably did. Well, give me an example.
XIM, Courier.
XM probably got ported because at one time NetLabs wanted to use that as their mail server.
Okay.
Yeah, probably.
Because we use XM on NetLabs,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't work very well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm just, using this as my own single user IMAP server at home. It might be enough.
Yeah, but you asked why it got ported.
Why it got ported.
Yes.
So talk to Adrian.
But I usually find, if I need something, I don't have time to port it myself. Well, it happens relatively quickly if I talk to the right people.
I've noticed that. I bought a new printer, and a couple days later, it was supported. Thank you, Paul.
Exactly. That's probably where our FTP server will come from.
Okay. Well, I'll be an enthusiastic tester of such a thing. Okay. That's where the Thunderbird slide went. That didn't print well. All right.
I have to move up to the front row.
Yeah. Well, I'm not trying to give you step-by-step
I know.
instructions for configuring Thunderbird. I'm just saying that the settings pretty much fit on this page. They aren't that difficult. And this has actually got 3 email servers on it, so it's easier than it would appear even from staring at how many settings are there on there? Well, not that many. So I find every time I get a new ISP, it's just a pain to get email working correctly. Apple Mail is regrettable. It's regrettable on iPhone, iPad. It's regrettable on iMac. On Macintosh. PM Mail's a better client. Thunderbird's a better client. I don't know what to say. It doesn't have filters.
Well,
Well, it kind of has filters, but it doesn't use them. Because now, if I poke on a message, it says what folder it goes to based on my previous habits, but it doesn't do it. Okay.
Maybe this is just a suggestion.
It's just a
Not
suggestion.
filter.
It's just a suggestion. Well, I get a lot of email. More than a suggestion would be good. So, okay, built into iOS, works with both POP and it's very versatile. It's fairly robust. Things crash on iPhone and iPad more than I'd expect, but it just blinks and okay, restart it. So it's pretty good. Yeah, I say IMAP synchronized between devices. This is good. iCloud email only works with the Apple Mail. I should say, well, iCloud Mail. It's really Apple Mail. And then stored mail on iCloud counts against your 5 gig limit. For an email hoarder like me, that's a bad thing. It's already needed for a lot of other vital iPhone things like backup. So I don't want to keep my email there. Actually, Apple's not that likely to be hacked, but anybody can be hacked.
I don't know, ask that actress.
Oh.
That's a good point.
Well,
they've had password hacked.
Yeah.
It's a social engineering thing.
Right. You could guess someone's password, or you could steal their device and just read it.
If the NSA can be hacked, anybody can be hacked.
Anybody can be hacked. Yeah.
Expect.
Oh, who was the big
Basically.
bank who got hacked recently? Then there were 2 of them. Bank of America?
Bank of America.
Bank of America. I mean, they got everything, which must have taken them all weekend.
And JP Morgan.
And the same.
It
same guys
goes
were
on
so-
longer than
yeah.
a weekend. In
Oh,
other
yeah.
words,
But
they,
the exposure.
once the vulnerability has been exploited,
Yeah.
it's just a funnel, and
Right.
the data just flows and flows and flows,
Yeah.
and it goes on for months until it's caught.
Right, because usually the smart ones,
Oh.
they don't grab data quickly.
Okay.
No.
They sip.
Exactly, just a
Ah,
little bit at
okay,
a time,
but-
so that no one notices the bandwidth loss or any other odd activity,
I'm
suspicious
sure they
activity in the
researched and
logs.
researched, but the actual stealing of data happened over a weekend. And the same exploit was sitting with Fidelity Investments.
Yeah,
and they
Fidelity's
got-
also
They got bupkis from Fidelity
Mhm.
because Fidelity had internal security. So
Mhm.
they got in and got nothing.
And they got nothing.
Yeah. So, a properly configured corporation, a properly configured network, yeah, you can get in, maybe, exploit something in some 0 day, won't get you anything. So,
Dumb question.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, some guy inside.
Because I don't use Apple stuff at all. Is
Yeah.
it possible wired to go between an OS2 machine and an Apple device and transfer data?
No. Well,
No.
photos. It acts just like your camera.
Okay. So
And there's a whole field of jailbreaking and stuff. I find it to be fairly useless. It's so easy to transfer over the net. I don't really care to use the wire.
With my dumb phone, you just plug it in and it says, "Hi, I'm a hard drive. You
Okay.
suck."
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And if they did that, then the FBI never would have had a complaint.
If somebody gave me a smartphone, it's an Android, a G3.
Okay,
And
Android
I-
does not permit it either,
Either,
but
that's
it's
right.
easier to jailbreak.
Well, apparently there are applications that allow you to talk between 2 machines, but of course there isn't anything for OS2.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, they do part of the job, but there's a sandbox in Android just like there is in Apple. So, okay, iCloud has a web version. Every decent application that comes from Apple on the iPhone has a web version of it, and periodically when a new release of Firefox comes along, it all works beautifully on OS2. When I said I'm going to do this presentation, it was working great. I mean, life was good. I could just move data back and forth. Everything was synchronized. I was ready to give up on Word, Open Office, and start using all the Apple, word processor, spreadsheet. Again, it's all running on OS2 fast. Then at some point, iCloud is continuously updated. It stopped working on our browser, and I'm sure I could take a newer Firefox somewhere else, and it works great. So, You know, it's just our Firefox is not updated as rapidly, and you know, once every 6 months is not adequate these days, at least with Firefox. So that's kind of sad. And it's just a small error. I mean, I opened the web console, and it's like, well, this is really weird. I mean, first of all, it gives the error. Second, it gives a big ad from Apple asking you, since you opened the web developer console, to go contact them, their employment division, and get a job with them. What?
Get them to fix it.
Well, I can report the error all I want, but
Yeah, but
it's,
the second part was the more important.
yeah, it's not really, well, I guess you know, there was something that could be on their end, but you know, this is really our problem.
Is it really, what is it, like a JavaScript error or something like that?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you know.
And it's not a JavaScript we're not implemented, it's a JavaScript both of them sit there and wait for each other.
Yeah.
So is it, what do you call it, deadlock? Yeah. So
Deadly embrace.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're just, yeah. And you know, it warns you're using a deprecated JavaScript construct.
Oh, okay, that's part of it.
You know, so Apple's not perfect, far from it. But you know, this was something that, you know, just doing the port again probably would have fixed it. You know, just porting a little more recent. And I don't know how hard that is for them. Obviously, a little hard.
Well, right now it's just a matter of resources. They actually have it down to the point where it's not too bad.
Yeah.
Because, you know, even though our releases are fairly far apart in time,
Yeah.
the merging and all that sort of stuff, while it can be tedious, we're not talking huge architectural changes.
That was what I understood, but I know the devil's in the details. So
It was harder when we first came out with 24 and 31.
yeah,
Because we had they had added new technology
right.
in terms of, you know, huge components like IPC and
But we
running your plugins in a separate process
yeah,
space.
we don't have all that yet, really.
Yeah,
So-
we got a lot of it.
We got a lot of it,
We've
okay.
got enough that you can't really tell we don't have it. Really.
Right, right.
You know, I don't think we actually have the thing toggled on to run the plugins, but we
Yeah.
really only have one plugin we need these days.
Right,
You
right.
know, until we get more, there's not a lot of incentive.
Yeah, and this is not a bug of our port, it's a bug in Firefox that's been fixed, and we just need to have a newer version of the Firefox code.
I'm gonna make a thought here which has some relevance to OS2 development. I view this in a different way because I run into this kind of thing in other contexts.
Yeah.
It has to do with your design philosophy. So I come from the telecom business.
Yeah.
When I'm wearing my electronics hat, where everything is designed basically to run forever and be backward compatible. I have telephones which are 120 years old in my house.
Yeah.
And they still work. They had replaced some physical things that came
Yes.
out. But that's the design philosophy of that industry.
Yeah,
Everything works forever. You drop it, you abuse it, it always works, and it always works with the previous generation.
sure.
So these things, that if you say, oh, it doesn't work, I just sit there and went, okay, so somebody wasn't thinking correctly about how you design things.
Yeah,
First of all, if it doesn't work, there has to be an informative error message. We can't load such and such a module or something like that. These things are absent. So there's a case with Adobe. So I still have Acrobat 5 running.
Yeah.
I paid money for it. It's a great program. But it has trouble reading the newest versions. People are saving things in PDF level
Exactly.
1.5, 1. They are enormous files. The program is enormous. You don't get an informative error message. So I happen to, by accident, know the chief scientist at Adobe, and he said, yeah, we just weren't thinking about it. It's too late to fix it. But they've got, so for example, these enormous files, they got apparently all kinds of space reserved for layers and things like that. But I get simple text files people send me. They save it as a 1.7 file. I can't read it in the previous versions because they've reserved all the space for other things. You don't know why it fails. Okay, I got the answer from him because it was a design error. But this is why I like when Lewis said, we're going to design our stuff. It will run everything that ever ran on OS2. And that's sort of the way I design things, and that's the way things should be. So somebody should really complain to these people, you know. You're just not doing a good job of software. Something fails, you have to know why it fails, and it shouldn't fail it's not that we don't implement, most of these things that don't work, I don't think they have the new features. It's not failing because the file that you're trying to, that was served to you has some new feature you can't access. There's
Oh,
just
that's not right. That's not right. It's failing because a new feature is not available on OS2. I'm trying to do something
should tell
fairly
you that.
sophisticated, and we just don't have it yet. Firefox code's being continually updated. If we had a refresh from Bitwise, it would likely work again.
Why does it give you the rest of the file, paint the page with everything else? So, for example, if you say, I don't want Facebook to
The
open,
paint, in this
you'll
case,
get
is an
it-
entire spreadsheet program, or the display of my entire contacts. It's fairly sophisticated. This is like downloading a whole Office suite to run inside of Firefox. The fact that there's some minor thing that makes them go into the deadly embrace, yeah, they wrap up all the information and report it to Apple. Do you want to send this to Apple? Yes, no. They've made it work the way you say. But there's a bug. The bug's actually been fixed at Firefox. We just don't have it. And because
So
of
I have to disagree with that design philosophy. Things should interact and interwork. And if they don't, it should present all the information that it's able to do
In other words, it's-
rather than just stopping work.
I have a feeling that.
It's just the wrong design philosophy, because in the real world, everybody can't be constantly up to date with the latest thing that some clever kid figures out in Silicon Valley. Things basically have to work.
Yeah.
Mm,
Am I missing
now,
something?
we'll have to disagree on that. This is the homepage it would have displayed. I went to another computer and printed them out. Mail, contacts, calendar, photos, iCloud Drive. Don't use it, but it's the same as Google Drive. Notes I used. It's my diary. Reminders, don't use it. Pages is the word processor. Numbers is the spreadsheet. Keynote is the presentation software that I think David used it for his presentation. Find Friends, don't really use it. Find iPhone, sometimes if I'm sort of in a messy mood, what room did I leave it in? Bang it. It shows me on Apple Maps which room in my house it's in. Settings, it's an annoyance, but you do have to alter settings sometimes. Photos, it's nice having all my photos from all my devices united into one place, and then have a page here where I can just transfer them to OS2. But in fact, I found that the file browser app is much better. I can, if I select 100 photos, it tries to download them one at a time, and it's fraught with fraught with danger. But so I don't download this way, but it is kind of nice to have that available. I can view the camera roll. This is sort of my photo album that I like to carry around and show people, so I can edit it from OS2, or when Firefox is working, edit it from a web browser. Digital photo management, yeah, I accumulate a lot of photos. I keep them on OS2. OS2 is my computer. That's where I want to keep stuff. But yeah, so I can make a slideshow with iCloud. And yeah, okay, I guess I've explained this one already. It's always available on my tablet. Notes, this is my diary. I keep one every day. What did I do that day? And usually it's just write-only memory, but once in a while I say, didn't I do that? Well, if it's in Thunderbird, I can search the entire diary. It's kind of nice. Settings really doesn't have much useful in it, but I thought I'd show you. Got your devices down there. You can manage your Apple ID. If you need to change your password, this is where to do it. Okay, so there it is. I've been using the iPhone, iPad with Ecom Station, my Ecom Station with OS2 for probably a year for the iPhone, 3 years for the iPad, and it's my sort of accumulated knowledge of how to make them play nicely together. So, thanks. Any further questions, comments?
Does that JavaScript problem affect 38.8 on all platforms, and it was fixed in 43 ESR?
Yeah, it's fixed in the next ESR, and I believe the answer is yes, it's on.
And the fix has not been backported to the 38
I
ESR.
don't know that. We got a snapshot of ESR 38. I
Mhm.
don't think 38's being updated anymore, but I don't know if we have the last snapshot
Okay.
of 38. I'm just not that familiar with our Firefox.
I mean,
know
it
I know we
may
have
not
two
be,
snapshots of 38.
it may not be bad to backport that fix until we get Firefox 43.
Yeah, and I don't know how I'd identify the fix, but. you know,
Well, there's probably a bug open for it in at Mozilla.org,
There probably is.
So we should look for the bug
That's probably the best
and
way.
see what was done with the bug, and then
Mhm.
reference that in a ticket for Firefox 38.8 in the Bitwise GitHub
Okay.
issues.
Interesting way to try to address
Yeah,
that. Okay.
And this is a great tip for everyone. Whenever you're working with ported software and you find a bug, what you think is a bug in the OS2 version of Firefox, go to the main project, go to bugzilla.mozilla.org and search for that behavior there and see if it affects the other platforms, or if we only see it on OS2. And then you'll know really where and how the bug should be reported. It may not be an OS2 problem to fix. It may be a cross-platform problem that affects Windows and Linux. The Mozilla guys really don't care about OS2. The answer about any OS2 bugs is OS2 is no longer a supported platform. But if the bug is cross-platform and you see that other people running other platforms have reported it, the thing to do is to note the bug, the URL of the bug or the bug number, go to the Firefox project issue tracker, open an issue for it there and reference the original bug. And then the developer can look and see when that bug has been addressed for the other platforms and look at pulling that fix into the OS2 port. Instead of immediately going there and saying, oh, the OS2 Firefox is broken. No, it's not broken. It works exactly like the Firefox and every other platform. That's what's broken.
Yeah.
The difference is, tell me that it's broken in the main thing and we should watch it to see when it's fixed there so we can fix it on our platform. So that's what I'm saying here. We may not need to wait for Firefox 43 for that fix, because a lot of times the fixes are done and then they're backported to the previous ESR.
Is it easy enough to get ESR 38 Firefox for another platform?
Sure,
Okay.
absolutely. Change your update channel in your in about Firefox.
Yeah.
Right. Change your update from release to ESR,
Oh, okay.
and then you'll only get updates for the ESR version.
Wait, ESR isn't 38 anymore.
It's not 38 anymore. But if you're using it on Linux,
Yeah.
you can downgrade
Ah,
to 38.
okay. Okay.
Okay, there are a number of different ways to downgrade to 38, so you can
Okay.
test it on 38 and make sure that it works.
I'll look that up. That's good. Thanks.
Mhm.
Thanks. All right,
That's it for me.
All right. I think we're ready for John for our closing
Okay.
comments.
I would warn you that this is going to be short.
That's good.
Me and Chair Drew.
May I slide in behind you?
Oh,